You ever notice how people only connect the dots after everything falls apart? They wander through life, pretending the signs are just coincidences, little accidents scattered across their path. But deep down, they know better. They know every warning, every whisper, every strange twist in their story wasn't random. It was pointing somewhere, dragging them somewhere, bringing them right here. And that's the part that scares them, realizing it was never chaos. It was direction. Funny thing about life, people think chaos is random. They see doors slamming, plans crumbling, relationships breaking, and they assume it's bad luck, coincidence, fate having a laugh. But the truth is far more clever. Life doesn't just break things for fun. It doesn't scatter signs for the amusement of anyone. Every disruption, every twist, every moment that made your stomach tighten or your heart skip a beat, those weren't accidents. They were signals, carefully placed, waiting for you to notice, waiting for you to connect the dots, waiting for you to realize that the chaos wasn't a punishment. It was a map. Most people ignore these signals. They stumble through them like blind pedestrians, bumping into walls, blaming the world, the timing, the universe, anything but their own lack of awareness. The warnings are always there, subtle, almost imperceptible, hidden in plain sight. Maybe it's the friend who left without explanation, the job that never worked out, the heartbreak that stings more than it should. People shrug it off, call it coincidence, call it misfortune, when in reality, it's a whisper from life saying, asterisk, pay attention, this matters. Asterisk. Think about it. How often do you look back and realize all the little things pointed towards something bigger, something unavoidable, something that finally demanded your attention? All those missed signs, all those moments you ignored, they were building a pattern, a story, a direction you couldn't see in the moment. People live as if the present is isolated, disconnected from the past or future, but life doesn't work that way. Every experience, every setback, every strange encounter is part of a chain reaction, quietly nudging you toward what you were always meant to face. The problem is, people want clarity before they act. They want a neon sign, a marching band, a guarantee that tells them exactly what to do next. But life is never that polite. Life whispers. Life teases. Life puts you in uncomfortable situations, surrounds you with friction, and waits to see if you'll notice the pattern forming beneath your feet. Most people don't notice. They get distracted by the noise, the drama, the small irritations, and they miss the signal entirely. They think they're lost, when in reality, they're exactly where the universe intended them to be, even if it's terrifying. And isn't that the most fascinating part? The very moments that feel like destruction are the moments that are laying the foundation for creation. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every door that closes is a piece of a puzzle. Life isn't chaotic, it's deliberate, it's precise. It's a series of carefully orchestrated nudges meant to align you with a path you can't yet imagine. People only see it in hindsight, and by the time they do, they're often shocked at how obvious it all was. You see, signals don't come in grand gestures. They're quiet, persistent, subtle. Maybe it's a feeling in your gut, a restless night, a recurring thought you keep brushing aside. Maybe it's a series of small coincidences, so small that you almost miss them. That's the brilliance of it. Life doesn't shout. It whispers, because the ones who notice the whispers are the ones ready for the next step. The ones who dismiss them are the ones who keep spinning in the same loop, wondering why life isn't changing. And here's the irony. Most people interpret chaos as randomness, as punishment, as evidence they've failed. But the reality is the opposite. The chaos is the universe trying to catch your attention. It's life waving its hands, tapping on your shoulder, shaking the walls, saying, asterisk, this is your moment. Can you see it? Asterisk, every unsettling coincidence, every disruption in routine, every moment that felt like life was mocking you, it was pointing you here. It was preparing you to arrive at a place you couldn't have reached any other way. The challenge, of course, is noticing. To see the signs requires awareness, patience, and a willingness to feel uncomfortable. To accept that what feels like destruction might actually be construction. To recognize that life is rarely random when you look closer. Most people refuse to look closer. They step over the signals, ignore the whispers, scroll past the moments that are actually calling them to awaken. They treat life like a puzzle that's supposed to be easy instead of a labyrinth designed to sharpen them, to challenge them, to direct them towards something inevitable. And if you're still paying attention right now, if the hairs on your neck tingle, if your chest feels tight, if a part of you knows this isn't coincidence, maybe that means you're one of the few noticing. Maybe that means the signs have been working, patiently, persistently, subtly, leading you right here toward the realization that nothing in your life was random and everything was pointing exactly where you needed to go. You ever notice how people resist change even when every piece of their life is screaming for it? They act like the signs aren't there, like the whispers, the nudges, the uncomfortable little moments pointing them in a direction they don't want to face. They're optional. Most people scroll past them, pretend they're coincidences, laugh them off, as if life is some casual game they can ignore without consequence. But here's the thing. Life doesn't whisper for fun. It whispers because it cares enough to grab your attention before it's too late. Every missed cue, every ignored discomfort is a chance slipping through your fingers, a lesson waiting to be acknowledged. Discomfort is the universal language of truth. It's the way life tells you, asterisk, pay attention, this is important, asterisk. And most people react to discomfort with avoidance. They shift, they distract, they scroll, they tell themselves it's nothing, when in reality it's everything. The 97% who ignore these signals are the ones who keep repeating the same mistakes, walking in circles, wondering why nothing ever changes. Discomfort isn't a punishment, it's a compass. It points to the growth they refuse to face. Think about it. Every time you feel uneasy, anxious, restless, or frustrated, there's a reason. That reaction isn't random. It's a signal you've been conditioned to avoid, trained to interpret as danger, weakness, or failure. But the truth is, discomfort is the bridge between the life you have and the life you could have. The very moments that feel intolerable, awkward, inconvenient, or painful are the ones where transformation hides. People avoid them because they want safety, they want comfort, they want things to feel familiar. But safety is the enemy of progress. Comfort is the accomplice of mediocrity. Most people don't recognize discomfort because they confuse it with threat. The tightening chest, the restless nights, the lingering tension, these are read as problems, as barriers, as signs that something is wrong. But the rare few, the 3%, read it differently. They understand that tension is not a warning to stop, it's a signal to move. It's the subtle pulse of opportunity disguised as unease. The very feeling that makes you want to run is the feeling that tells you, asterisk, this is where your attention belongs. This is where your life begins to change. Asterisk. People want clarity before they act, but clarity rarely arrives in comfort. Clarity comes from stepping into the uncertain, moving despite fear, leaning into that unease that most people ignore. Discomfort is the teacher, and the classroom is uncomfortable. It asks you questions you don't want to answer. Asterisk. Who are you really? What are you avoiding? How much longer will you tolerate the mediocre version of yourself? Asterisk. Most people leave the classroom before the lesson begins. The ones who stay, those are the ones who become unforgettable. You've felt that pull, haven't you? That sense that something isn't right, that you're standing on the edge of something important, but you're too scared, too lazy, or too stubborn to step forward. That is life shaking your shoulder, shaking the cage, demanding your attention. And if you ignore it, the same signal will keep coming until it becomes impossible to miss. And yet, people still resist. They say, asterisk, I'll wait for a better time, a safer moment, a perfect plan, asterisk. But the perfect time is never going to arrive. The safe moment is a lie. The plan is never fully formed. You have to move into discomfort first. Discomfort is where potential lives. The restless nights, the unexpected challenges, the moments of awkwardness and fear, all of it is fertile ground for growth. People avoid it, and that's why they stay average. They stay stuck. They stay small. They live their lives pretending nothing is trying to reach them, nothing is trying to teach them, nothing is trying to push them forward. But the 3%, they embrace the unease. They step into it. They follow it, even when every instinct is screaming to retreat. And in that tension, in that push, they find clarity, opportunity, and transformation. The irony is that discomfort is not permanent. It's temporary, but the rewards it offers are lasting. People think avoiding discomfort will protect them, but all it does is prolong stagnation. It delays insight. It delays growth. It delays awakening. Every second spent hiding from what feels uncomfortable is a second stolen from the life you could have built if you had simply leaned in, if you had simply faced what you feared, if you had simply listened to the signals. And that's why noticing discomfort is a privilege. It's a chance that most people waste. Those small tugs of unease, those sparks of tension that make you feel off balance if you follow them, if you pay attention, if you let them guide you, you start to move in the direction you were meant to go. The rest, they keep scrolling, keep avoiding, keep wondering why the life they dream about never shows up. Courage is one of those things people think you either have or you don't. They imagine it like some rare ingredient, reserved for the chosen, the extraordinary, the lucky. They wait for a surge of bravery, some cosmic injection that will make the impossible suddenly feel comfortable. But that's the joke, isn't it? Courage doesn't arrive before you move, it arrives because you moved. The first step is never easy. It's messy, shaky, terrifying, and yet it's always the only step that matters. Most people freeze, paralyzed by the illusion that readiness comes before action. But action is what creates readiness. Action is what births courage. Action is what proves you exist beyond the small cage of your fears. Think about it. Most people spend their lives waiting for signals that never arrive. They wait for confidence to feel natural, for clarity to shine a perfect path, for conditions to line up like obedient soldiers. They wait while life happens to them, while opportunities pass by, while fear tightens its grip, whispering that retreat is safety. And here's the irony: retreat never protects you. It only delays the moment when you will have to confront the same fear again, heavier, sharper, louder. Courage is forged in confrontation. It's crafted in the fire of discomfort, in the very friction most people flee from. The first step is the cruelest joke, because it feels impossible. The mind floods with reasons not to go. The body trembles as if warning you of imminent danger. And yet, all that trembling, all that hesitation, is not a signal to stop. It's the signal that something important is happening. It's the universe pointing at a threshold and saying, asterisk, if you step, you'll change. Asterisk, that's the moment when most people turn back. They retreat into excuses, into routines, into habits that feel safe but cage them. The rare few step forward, trembling, uncertain, exposed, and in that very motion, courage is born. Courage is not the absence of fear. It never is. Courage is moving despite fear. It's leaning into the terror, into the doubt, into the uncertainty, and saying, asterisk, I will act anyway. Asterisk, every person you admire, every story of triumph, every legend you secretly envy, they all began with fear. They began uncertain. They began trembling. The difference is they didn't wait for fear to vanish. They didn't hope for it to disappear magically. They moved, and the movement transformed the fear into courage, into momentum, into power. Most people misunderstand courage because they confuse it with heroics. They think it's a dramatic leap, a bold gesture, a spectacle for the world to witness. But the truth is far less glamorous. Courage is waking up when you don't feel like it. Courage is speaking your truth when it's easier to stay silent. Courage is staying in a room that terrifies you, making the call, taking the first step every single day, long after the excitement has faded. Courage is consistency disguised as discomfort. It's persistence disguised as vulnerability. It's subtle, invisible, terrifyingly quiet, and that's why most people never recognize it. You ever notice how fear multiplies when you hesitate? Every moment of indecision fans the flames, makes the shadows grow taller, makes the obstacle seem more insurmountable. Waiting doesn't diminish fear, it inflates it. Courage shrinks fear, not by eliminating it, but by facing it repeatedly. Every small choice to act against doubt chips away at the power fear holds over you. Each motion, no matter how tiny, teaches your mind, your body, your soul that you are stronger than the voice telling you to stay small. Most people live their lives waiting for courage to arrive, thinking it's some treasure buried in luck, timing, or circumstance. But courage is not found. It's created. It's generated every time you refuse to let fear decide your actions. Every time you step when your instincts scream to stop. Every time you risk embarrassment for growth. Every time you feel exposed and still reach forward, that's where courage is made. That's where the rare, unstoppable few emerge from the crowd. And here's the brilliance of it. Once you act, once you step into the first terrifying move, courage becomes easier. Not because fear vanishes, but because you've proven to yourself that fear doesn't control you. It's a muscle. You can strengthen it. You can summon it, not from perfection, not from safety, but from the exact place that frightens you the most. Fear becomes the training ground, the sharpening stone, the stage where courage grows invisible wings. And that's why courage is contagious. The first act inspires the next. The first step clears the path for the second. Momentum builds in ways people rarely notice, until they're suddenly far ahead of the place they feared most. Most people never see it because they never start. They never move. They wait. And the rare few, those who lean forward, trembling, uncertain, exposed, watch the world bend, not because it owes them, but because courage bends it when it finally shows up. People love to talk about alignment as if it's some magical state that happens when the planets are in the right place or when life decides to be polite. They imagine a perfect convergence where everything clicks, where every choice suddenly feels easy, every decision feels obvious, and every obstacle melts away. The truth is far less romantic and far more cruelly clever. Alignment isn't given. It isn't something you stumble upon while waiting for luck to strike. Alignment is forged, carved, wrestled into existence by the choices you make when nothing feels right, by the actions you take when everything seems chaotic, by the decisions you commit to when your instincts scream that it's impossible. Most people are waiting for permission. They wait for clarity, certainty, comfort, someone else's approval, or a sign that the universe is finally smiling at them. They want every piece to fall neatly into place before they step forward. And that's the trap. Life rarely waits. Life rarely whispers softly. Alignment doesn't arrive wrapped in convenience. Alignment is messy. It shows up in tension, in friction, in moments where the wrong feels tempting. The familiar is safe, and the comfortable is lying to you. Alignment isn't something you find by waiting. It's something you create by moving in the direction that scares you the most, even when it seems everything is against you. People misunderstand alignment because they confuse it with comfort. They assume if things feel aligned, they should feel easy. But life rarely offers ease in the moments that matter most. The discomfort you feel, the doubt, the hesitation, the tension, those aren't signs you're off track. They're the fingerprints of growth, the echoes of potential waiting to be realized. Alignment doesn't erase conflict. It harnesses it. It doesn't remove fear. It channels it. The very things people avoid, the unease, the uncertainty, the dissonance, are the tools that forge alignment when wielded intentionally. Think about it. People drift through life pretending their intentions and actions are aligned, but their routines, habits, and choices betray them every single day. They say they want transformation, but they repeat patterns that ensure stagnation. They claim they desire purpose, but surround themselves with distractions that dilute it. They announce goals while feeding the behaviors that undermine them. They wait for the world to bend, when the truth is the world doesn't bend for indecision. Alignment comes from consistency, from intentionality, from refusing to let fear or comfort dictate your path. The rare few recognize this. They understand that alignment isn't passive, it's active, it's deliberate. It's crafted in the tiny, invisible choices that most people ignore. The choice to rise when you don't feel like it, to speak when it's easier to stay silent, to cut what no longer serves you, to embrace what challenges you. These small, repetitive decisions compound, creating a gravitational pull toward the life you're capable of living. Alignment is born not from luck or timing, but from relentless, deliberate action in the face of discomfort. And here's the cruel irony. Most people want alignment without responsibility. They want the vision without the discipline. They want results without friction. They imagine that clarity will come if they wait long enough, if they plan meticulously, if they hesitate just a little longer. But life doesn't reward hesitation. Life doesn't deliver opportunity on demand. Alignment emerges when you stop waiting for life to arrange itself and start arranging yourself to meet life head on. It's in that collision, the push against resistance, the confrontation with uncertainty, the refusal to remain small, that alignment awakens. Look closely at anyone who seems in sync with their path. Their presence, their decisions, their energy, they all flow as if effortlessly. But beneath that apparent ease lies the hard, messy work of creating alignment. Every choice that went against comfort, every risk taken when doubt screamed, every moment of courage repeated until instinct replaced fear, that is where alignment is forged. The world sees only the outcome, but the rare few understand the invisible process that led there. Alignment is subtle. It doesn't shout. It doesn't announce itself with grandeur. It begins quietly, in the small, almost imperceptible shifts that most people overlook. The person who notices, the one who chooses the uncomfortable step over the easy retreat, is the one who starts moving with the invisible current of life rather than against it. Momentum builds not because the world suddenly becomes easy, but because internal contradictions have been resolved. The scattered parts of a person, once at war, finally march in the same direction. And once alignment takes hold, it's transformative. You stop wasting energy on distractions that once controlled you. You stop tolerating situations and people that no longer serve you. You begin to act with precision, clarity, and relentless focus. Your intuition sharpens, your decisions solidify, and your path unfolds in ways that appear almost effortless to the outside observer. But it's not magic. It's the product of action, intention, and refusal to wait for life to be convenient. Alignment is earned. Alignment is created. Alignment is the reward for those willing to step into chaos, wrestle with discomfort, and shape themselves deliberately to meet the life waiting for them. People love comfort like it's a currency, as if sitting still, doing the familiar, and avoiding tension is the highest form of wisdom. They wrap themselves in routines, habits, and relationships that feel safe, and they call it stability. They believe comfort protects them from pain, risk, failure, and disappointment, but comfort is a sly accomplice. It's not a shield, it's a cage. The very thing that makes life feel easy is the same thing that quietly crushes ambition, dulls curiosity, and robs people of the experiences they're capable of handling. Most don't even realize they're imprisoned until the walls are closing in. Think about it. People complain about the life they lead, the mediocrity they endure, the dreams they never pursue, and yet they cling to comfort like it's a life raft. They stay in the same job, repeat the same patterns, maintain the same relationships, and call it responsibility, loyalty, or patience. What it really is avoidance. Comfort masquerades as safety, while secretly stripping people of their edge, their potential, their ability to act decisively in the face of opportunity. Most people would rather settle than risk the unknown, even if the unknown holds everything they've ever wanted. Comfort is seductive because it feels easy, familiar, and non-threatening. But the price is enormous. Every day spent clinging to comfort is a day spent shrinking, delaying, and retreating from the person you could become. People talk about wanting greatness, wanting transformation, wanting significance, but they misinterpret comfort as guidance. It whispers that caution is wisdom, that staying safe is smart, that the unknown is dangerous, when in reality the opposite is true. The unknown is where growth hides, where power hides, where courage reveals itself. Comfort is the deception that keeps people small, predictable, and forgettable. Most people avoid discomfort like it's poison, but discomfort is the currency of progress. The restless nights, the anxiety, the nervous energy, the moments where nothing feels certain, these are all signals that life is asking you to stretch, to risk, to evolve. People avoid them because they want safety, because safety feels tangible, because the unknown is terrifying. But comfort is a lie. It's a long, slow decay disguised as peace. People spend decades building their prisons brick by brick, thinking they're securing their lives, while all they're doing is burying their potential under routine, habit, and fear of change. You see, people fear discomfort more than they fear failure, more than they fear pain, more than they fear regret. They think pain is the enemy, but it's often the signal, the sting of resistance, the ache of growth, the friction of challenge. Those aren't punishments, they're invitations. They're life tapping you on the shoulder, saying, asterisk, move, choose, risk. This is where your next level begins. Asterisk, the people who refuse the discomfort, who stay wrapped in comfort, are the ones who look back years later and wonder why nothing happened, why their life feels stagnant, why they feel invisible in a world that keeps moving without them. Look at anyone who has transformed themselves, achieved something remarkable, or reinvented their lives. Every one of them stepped out of comfort. They leaned into fear, into uncertainty, into pain. They embraced discomfort as a teacher, a guide, a gatekeeper. They didn't wait for courage to arrive. They acted, and in acting, they discovered courage. They didn't wait for life to be easy. They accepted that growth is uncomfortable, messy, and demanding. And every step they took away from comfort compounded, building momentum, building clarity, building a version of themselves that comfort could never contain. Comfort is the enemy of momentum because it makes people passive. It creates the illusion of safety while undermining initiative, risk-taking, and bold action. People stay in jobs that bore them, relationships that drain them, habits that suffocate them, thinking they are wise or patient. But the wisdom lies in understanding that true security comes from capability, resilience, and readiness, not from familiarity. True growth, true transformation, true impact comes from stepping repeatedly into what feels uncertain, uncomfortable, and unknown. And here's the brutal truth. Once you step beyond comfort, once you begin to embrace discomfort as a necessary path, you'll never view life the same way. You start seeing the invisible chains that once held you. You start rejecting the distractions, excuses, and routines that kept you small. You stop tolerating the ordinary when the extraordinary is possible. Comfort will always try to pull you back, whispering its lies, trying to soothe you into stagnation. But once you've tasted the power, the clarity, the momentum that comes from moving through discomfort, you can't go back. The cage has been opened, the walls have fallen, and the life waiting for you beyond the soft chains of comfort begins to reveal itself. Time is the quietest, most ruthless enemy anyone will ever meet, and people treat it like a friend they can negotiate with. They act as if it's patient, as if it's endless, as if it will wait politely while they prepare, hesitate, and delay. They imagine tomorrow as a blank check, a guaranteed chance to start over, to correct mistakes, to chase the opportunities they've ignored. But time isn't a negotiator. It doesn't ask, it doesn't warn, it doesn't pause for indecision. It slips through your fingers with the subtlety of a thief in the night. And by the time you notice, the days, weeks, months, and years you thought you had are gone, and nothing feels reversible anymore. People waste time like it's infinite, spending hours on distractions, on comfort, on habits that feel good but accomplish nothing. They scroll, they binge, they procrastinate. They tell themselves it doesn't matter yet, that there's always another chance, another day, another opportunity. And every second they waste is a second the universe has quietly stolen from them. Every delay a moment lost forever. Every ignored signal another door closing without ceremony. Time doesn't give warnings in a way people can ignore and survive. It just moves, and life keeps happening whether you notice it or not. There's a reason people fear regret more than they fear failure. Regret comes from time, the realization that you could have done more, been more, risked more, and now those moments are gone. And most people, they don't understand that the warning signs are already there, etched in the texture of their daily lives. That nervous tug in your gut, that restless feeling in the middle of the night, that uneasy tension that tells you something is slipping, something is waiting. Something is meant for you but won't wait forever. Those are the whispers of time, the reminders that it won't wait. And yet people ignore them, thinking they have tomorrow, thinking they have forever, thinking the clock is lying. Time has a way of turning indifference into tragedy. Every missed opportunity, every avoided conversation, every delay in action compounds. People wait for the perfect moment, but perfection is a lie, a trap, an illusion meant to keep you passive. The perfect moment never arrives. The right time never knocks politely. Every second you wait thinking you're safe, thinking you're preparing, thinking you're pacing yourself, is a second you'll never get back. And life isn't waiting. Life is advancing, pushing, testing. And if you don't act, the consequences quietly pile up until the weight is unbearable. You ever notice how time amplifies honesty? It strips away pretenses, removes excuses, and forces clarity. The longer you wait, the louder the truth becomes. That dream you've been avoiding, that conversation you've been scared to have, that risk you've been hesitating to take, they become urgent not because the world changes, but because the clock keeps moving, relentless, indifferent, inevitable. People don't run out of options, they run out of time. That's the ultimate cruelty, and also the ultimate wake-up call. The rare few recognize this. They see the signals, the subtle warnings, the quiet nudges. They feel the restlessness, the unease, the whisper of opportunity and consequence, and they act. They don't wait for clarity. They don't wait for safety. They move, knowing that every second counts, knowing that hesitation is the true enemy, knowing that action, even imperfect action, is the only antidote to time's theft. Once you start seeing time as the finite, precious, and unforgiving force it is, you stop wasting it. You stop surrendering to comfort. You stop letting fear dictate your pace. Time is both the harshest teacher and the most generous motivator, depending on how you respond. If you ignore it, it punishes you quietly, relentlessly, invisibly, until all that remains is regret and what-ifs. But if you listen, if you act, if you move with urgency and intention, time becomes an ally, a partner, a force that propels you forward instead of holding you back. Every decision, every action, every moment of courage compounds, creating momentum that feels unstoppable. Unstoppable because you've learned the one secret most people never realize. Every second matters. Every moment is fleeting, and hesitation is the true luxury you cannot afford. And so life becomes a game of recognition versus denial. The moments are always here, the opportunities always present, the nudges always whispering. Time doesn't need to scream. It just keeps moving. And the question is whether you will move with it, or whether you will remain frozen while it passes, taking every chance, every possibility, every edge you could have had, leaving you to stare at the empty spaces where your life could have been, knowing, finally, that the clock never lied, and the warnings were always there. You ever notice how people only pay attention when it's already too late? They scroll, they swipe, they laugh, they ignore, convinced that life will always give them another chance, another reminder, another warning. But every now and then, something rare slips through the noise, something that was never meant for everyone. Just the ones who can actually hear, the ones who don't pretend to be awake, but actually are. And that's what this is. A message that doesn't repeat, doesn't beg, doesn't chase. It appears once, quietly, almost like it's testing you, watching if you're part of that tiny, stubborn 3% who actually listen, who don't brush off the discomfort, who don't hide behind excuses and distractions. Most people will skip this. They always do. They think they're in control. They think life waits for them. But a very small number, just a sliver, will feel that pull in their chest. That sharp little whisper telling them this is different, this is meant for them, this is the moment that doesn't come back. You ever notice how people walk through life like they've been promised 1,000 second chances? Like time is some obedient little pet that always comes back when they whistle. They skip messages, skip warnings, skip moments that were designed to shake them awake, and then they wonder why nothing changes. It's almost amusing, isn't it? This blind confidence that life will keep repeating itself until they're finally in the mood to pay attention. Most people move like that. 97% to be exact. They behave as if the universe is patient, as if opportunity waits politely at the door, tapping its foot while they get their excuses in order. They scroll through something meant for them and say, asterisk, I'll deal with it later, asterisk. Later becomes never, but everybody still convinces themselves they have time. They treat warnings like decorations, signals like suggestions, and opportunities like spam. What they don't realize is that the most important messages don't scream, they don't chase, they don't knock twice. They appear once quietly, almost casually, and watch what you do with them. That's the test. Not how smart you are, not how talented, just how awake. Most fail it without even knowing they were being tested. They think they skipped a video, ignored a thought, scrolled past a feeling. No, they skipped a door that doesn't reopen. Human beings are strange creatures. They'll suffer through years of discomfort, disappointment, even heartbreak. But ask them to pay attention for 10 seconds, and suddenly they're too busy. They'll cry about opportunities they never got, not realizing they walked right past them while looking for something flashier, louder, easier. The truth is, people don't lack opportunities. They lack awareness. The door was always there, just not in the shape they expected. And because it wasn't wrapped in fireworks, they dismissed it. You see, the rare ones, the 3%, they know something the rest don't. They understand that the universe doesn't waste energy repeating itself. When something shows up at the exact moment you need it, in the exact form you don't expect, that's the sign. That quiet tug inside your chest, that's the sign. That sudden jolt of discomfort, that's the sign. But most people are so wrapped in their distractions that the signs go unnoticed, like whispers in a storm. The 3% don't wait for perfect timing. They don't wait for motivation. They don't scroll past something that feels strangely specific. They recognize that the rarest messages are the ones that don't fit their comfort zone, the ones that make their heart skip for a second, the ones they can't forget even after they've put the phone down. They know that if something feels like it was meant for them, it probably was. And that tiny moment of recognition, that's enough for them to stop, lean in, and listen. Meanwhile, the other 97% keep living in this hypnotic loop, ignoring what's meant for them and chasing what destroys them. They beg for change, but run from the decisions that create it. They blame bad luck, bad timing, bad everything, except their own inattention. And that's the tragedy. Not that they don't get opportunities, but that they don't see them because they expect life to glow, shout, sparkle, or announce itself with applause. But life isn't a circus. It's quiet. It rewards the observant, not the impatient. It gives its best gifts to the ones who notice the smallest details, the ones who actually stop, pause, and say, asterisk, why did this appear right now? Why me? Why here? Asterisk, those are the questions that open doors. Those are the questions that separate the 3% from the rest. The message you're hearing right now, this moment, this interruption, this strange feeling that you shouldn't skip this is exactly the kind of thing most people ignore. They see it as random, as coincidence, as background noise, not realizing that the most life-altering truths often arrive disguised as something they almost scrolled past. That single act choosing not to ignore has changed more lives than any stroke of luck or miracle. And if you're still listening right now, if something in you is pulled forward instead of pushed away, if you feel that strange pressure in your mind telling you not to dismiss this like the rest, then maybe you're already separating yourself from the crowd. Maybe you're not one of them. Maybe you're the kind who doesn't depend on luck because awareness is your advantage. And that alone puts you in a category most people never reach. You ever wonder why certain moments make you uncomfortable? Like something inside you suddenly wakes up and starts pacing around. That little spark of unease, that shift in your chest, that tiny voice telling you, asterisk, pay attention, this matters, asterisk. Most people run from that feeling. They don't like discomfort. They think it means danger or embarrassment or effort. They assume anything that rattles them must be avoided. But that discomfort, that's the signal, the divider, the filter that separates the 3% who rise from the 97% who sleepwalk through life. People chase comfort like it's some holy prize. They want everything smooth, predictable, easy. They want warm feelings, soft truths, gentle reminders. They think growth should feel nice. But real growth, real change, it's messy, it's unsettling. It grabs you by the collar and forces you to see what you've been pretending not to notice. And most people, the majority, the crowd, they can't handle that. They want transformation without friction, purpose without struggle, evolution without discomfort. But that's not how anything meaningful works. The ones who listen, the rare ones, they don't run away when a message stings a little. They get curious. They lean into the discomfort. They ask themselves, asterisk, why did this hit me? Why did this feel personal? Why can't I look away? Asterisk, because they understand something important. Discomfort is not a threat. It's an invitation, a doorway, a moment when your old life and your potential collide. Most people feel that collision and immediately retreat. The 3% feel it and move closer. You can always tell who's who by how they react when truth gets too close. The majority distract themselves, scroll faster, laugh it off, pretend they didn't feel anything. They're experts at avoidance. They dodge anything that challenges their habits or exposes their excuses. They choose comfort over clarity every single time. And then they wonder why they're stuck in the same loop, year after year, repeating the same tired story. But the 3%, they understand that every life-changing message comes wrapped in discomfort. They don't expect truth to be soft. They don't assume purpose will be pleasant. They know that the universe doesn't whisper to people who aren't ready. It provokes them. It shakes them. It gives them a tiny shock to snap them out of autopilot. And instead of running from that feeling, they examine it. They recognize it as a sign that something is shifting, that their life is being nudged in a direction they can't ignore. You've felt that before, haven't you? That moment when something feels too specific, too direct, too coincidental to dismiss. It unsettles you because it exposes what you've been avoiding. It holds up a mirror you weren't prepared for. And in that uncomfortable moment, you have two choices. Retreat like the majority, or lean in like the 3%. That choice determines everything. Discomfort is the compass that most people refuse to follow. They think it points toward danger, but it actually points toward evolution. It's the feeling you get right before you level up. It's the internal alarm that signals a shift, a chance, a message meant for you. But if you numb it, ignore it, swipe past it, you silence the very thing designed to guide you forward. And that's why so many people stay exactly where they are, comfortable but unfulfilled, safe but stagnant, alive but barely living. You see, comfort doesn't build anything. Comfort protects your present but destroys your future. Discomfort does the opposite. It disrupts your present but unlocks the future you keep fantasizing about. The 3% understand that. That's why they respond differently. They pay attention when something makes them uneasy. They listen harder when a message feels too real. They don't run from the truth just because it doesn't feel good. They recognize that anything that shakes them is trying to wake them. Imagine how many warnings, chances, signs, and breakthroughs people have ignored simply because they were uncomfortable. Imagine how many opportunities they've lost because the first feeling wasn't pleasant. Imagine how much purpose has slipped through their fingers because they chose comfort over awareness. That's the tragedy of the 97%. They think discomfort is the enemy when it's actually the doorway they've been begging for. And yet, here you are, reading, listening, feeling something you can't quite name. Maybe it's curiosity. Maybe it's tension. Maybe it's that subtle pull telling you not to scroll away, not this time. That feeling is the signal. That's the dividing line. That's the moment where most walk away and a rare few stay. And whether you realize it or not, your reaction to this discomfort is already telling you which side you're on. Courage. People treat it like some rare ingredient they're supposed to already have stored somewhere inside them. They think it's a natural resource, like some people are simply born with buckets of it, while everyone else is left wandering around waiting for a miracle. They sit and wait for the right feeling, the perfect moment, the magical burst of bravery that will suddenly make everything easy. But that's the trick, isn't it? Courage doesn't show up times before times you move. It shows up times because times you moved. Most people never learn that. They sit in silence, motionless, convincing themselves they're just not ready yet, when the truth is, readiness is created, not found. The world is full of people who could have become something powerful if only they hadn't waited for courage to tap them on the shoulder. They wait for confidence before they speak, certainty before they try, clarity before they begin. They wait for fear to disappear, as if fear is some obedient pet that can be trained to sit quietly in the corner. But fear doesn't shrink from waiting. Fear feeds on waiting. The longer you sit, the louder it gets. The longer you hesitate, the heavier it feels. Until the thing that once scared you a little starts to scare you completely, simply because you avoided it long enough for it to grow teeth. You ever notice how the first step is always the hardest? Not because it's big, but because it's time's first. Asterisk. That first inch forward is where every doubt, every excuse, every memory of failure comes crawling out, whispering in your ear, begging you to stay still. People think that means they're not brave enough. They think courage should erase fear. But the truth is almost laughable. Courage is born from the exact moment you move times despite time's fear. It's created in the clash, in the confrontation, in that sharp breath you take right before you do the thing your mind tried to talk you out of. Action rewires you. It tells your brain, asterisk, look, we survived. Look, we can do this, asterisk. It teaches your body that you don't fall apart just because you stepped into the unknown. The moment you act, fear loses its authority. It realizes you're not going to let it drive anymore. But people who never act never get to experience that shift. They stay prisoners of a fear that could have been defeated by a single step. Most people spend their lives mistaking fear for a stop sign. They feel that tightening in their chest and assume it's the universe telling them to turn back. But those who understand how life works, they see fear as a threshold. They feel the same heartbeat, the same nerves, the same doubt, but they walk anyway. And when they walk, something interesting happens. Fear begins to change shape. It stops being a wall and starts becoming a doorway that only opens when you approach it. Look around at anyone you admire, anyone who built something, anyone who transformed themselves, anyone who rose from nothing. None of them waited for courage. They acted first. They jumped before they felt ready. They stumbled, made mistakes, embarrassed themselves. And in that chaos, they discovered courage wasn't a gift. It was a consequence, a reward, a byproduct of choosing movement when fear was begging for silence. But the majority, they cling to comfort like it's a lifeline. They rehearse their dreams but never perform them. They talk about what they want while sitting in the same chair, repeating the same routine, living the same year on loop. They keep saying, asterisk, soon, one day, when I feel brave enough, when things calm down, asterisk. They don't realize that courage doesn't wait for them. It waits times on times them. You can tell a lot about a person by what they do when fear shows up. Some freeze, some flee, and some smirk because they've figured out the trick. They know fear is just the mind trying to protect you from growth by pretending growth is danger. They know the body reacts the same way to fear and excitement, so they choose to interpret the trembling as a sign that something important is about to happen. Action is the spark. Movement is the ignition. Courage is the flame that appears afterward. And once it appears, you start to feel like you can push further, climb higher, attempt bigger things, not because you stopped being afraid, but because you proved to yourself that fear doesn't get the final vote. And that tiny proof, that single moment where you moved when every voice in your head told you not to, that's how courage is born and reborn every time you refuse to wait for permission to begin. People love to preach about alignment, as if life is some neat little puzzle where every piece politely waits its turn and clicks perfectly into place. They think the stars will suddenly line up, the noise will fade, the path will glow, and some invisible hand will gently guide them toward their destiny. How adorable. They don't realize alignment isn't something the universe delivers. It's something times create by choosing direction when everything around you seems scattered. People wait for signs, for clarity, for certainty, clutching their doubts like blankets, hoping the world will tidy itself up before they make a move. But nothing aligns until times do. You've seen it. Someone sitting on the edge of a decision, waiting for the right moment. They stare at their chaos, hoping one day it'll magically organize itself. They want guarantees before they commit, results before effort, comfort before growth. They think alignment is a gift that drops from the sky if they behave patiently enough. The truth is far less gentle. Life stays messy until you decide who you're going to be inside the mess. The moment you choose direction, the moment you align your actions with your intention, the world starts shifting, not because it's doing you favors, but because your focus becomes sharper than your fear. People assume alignment feels peaceful, serene, harmonious. They want the calm without the conflict. But real alignment often starts with discomfort. It begins when you confront the parts of yourself that have been pulling you in opposite directions. One piece wants comfort, another piece wants victory. One wants safety, another wants significance. It's a tug of war, and everyone's waiting for the rope to stop shaking before they make a move. But the rope only steadies when you pull with full force, when you decide which part of you deserves to lead. Alignment comes from choosing, not waiting. There's something fascinating about humans. They crave control but hate commitment. They want to steer the ship without picking a destination. They want straight paths while walking crooked. They want consistency without discipline. But alignment requires sacrifice, the sacrifice of excuses, the sacrifice of distractions, the sacrifice of the weaker version of you that keeps whispering, "We can do this later." And oh, how seductive later is. It's the most popular hiding place for wasted potential. But those who break out of that illusion understand the truth. You stop drifting the moment you stop lying to yourself about your intentions. People don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they lack alignment between what they say and what they do. They talk about change while repeating patterns that sabotage it. They declare their goals and then surround themselves with habits, environments, and people that contradict those goals. They make promises to themselves and then watch those promises dissolve into procrastination. They think life is punishing them, when really, they're just out of alignment with the future they claim to want. But when a person finally snaps out of that trance, when they stop treating intention like a wish and start treating it like a direction, the shift is unmistakable. Suddenly, everything they do points forward. Their choices sharpen. Their energy concentrates. Their mind stops scattering itself across a dozen meaningless possibilities and locks onto one path with precision. And the world responds not magically, but predictably. Because when you move with alignment, your actions don't fight each other anymore. They build, they compound, they amplify. You ever notice how people who are aligned have a certain presence? Not arrogance, clarity. They walk differently. They speak differently. Their decisions seem effortless, not because life is easier for them, but because they're not carrying the weight of uncertainty. When you're aligned, doubts still whisper, fears still tap on your shoulder, but they don't get to steer. You've already chosen the direction, and everything inside you marches in that direction, whether it feels comfortable or not. Alignment is created in the small, invisible choices, the ones nobody sees but you. Waking up when you don't want to, staying committed when the excitement wears off, cutting off distractions that feel good but lead nowhere, saying no to habits that keep you small, saying yes to challenges that stretch you. It's not glamorous, it's not dramatic, it's not cinematic. But that's where real alignment is forged, in the quiet corners, where you choose your future over your impulses. And once alignment takes root, everything you touch begins to shift. Opportunities stop slipping through your fingers. Momentum starts to gather. The chaos around you doesn't disappear, but it stops owning you. You learn to walk straight through the noise without losing focus, because now every part of you is moving in the same direction, fueled by the same intention, driven by the same vision. And that's when life starts bending, not for you, but with you, as if it finally recognizes the version of you that refused to wait for alignment and chose to become aligned instead. People cling to comfort like it's some kind of sacred blanket, wrapping themselves in routines that keep them predictable, small, and safe. They think comfort protects them, as if safety is the same as stability. But here's the trick no one likes to admit. The things that feel safest are often the things quietly holding you hostage. Comfort has this sweet, innocent smile, the kind that distracts you while it slips chains around your ankles. You don't notice until you try to move, until you try to grow, until you try to leave. That's when you realize comfort wasn't a friend, it was a trap dressed like a warm hug. People don't lose because they aren't capable. They lose because they're too comfortable. They get used to the stale patterns, the repetitive days, the predictable choices. They crave the familiar because the familiar requires nothing from them. It doesn't demand courage. It doesn't expose weakness. It doesn't ask them to confront the truth of who they are versus who they pretend to be. And so they settle, repeating the same comfortable behaviors while complaining about the uncomfortable results. It's almost comedic watching someone curse the fire while refusing to leave the room that's filling with smoke. Every person has felt that pull from inside the one whispering that they're meant for more. A tug, a spark, a restlessness that says staying here is not an option. But that voice has to fight an opponent stronger than any external enemy. The seductive lie that says, you can stay where you are, you're doing fine. That's the line comfort uses to keep you obedient. Not great, not fulfilled, not powerful, just fine. And fine is the biggest coffin potential ever gets buried in. Fine is where dreams go to suffocate quietly. The strange thing is, people know this. Deep down, they know comfort kills ambition. They know the life they want sits on the other side of inconvenience, uncertainty, and effort. But they cling to the soft pillow of complacency because stepping out of it feels like walking barefoot on broken glass. What they don't realize is that staying in it is worse. Comfort doesn't stay gentle. It hardens into regret. It becomes a weight. It whispers what-ifs into your ear at night. It reminds you that every day you stayed still was a day you could have been building the version of yourself you admire. When you get too comfortable, you stop questioning. You stop challenging. You stop imagining. You repeat yesterday because it's easier than inventing tomorrow. And that's the tragedy. People forget that the biggest breakthroughs in their lives never came from easy places. They came from chaos, from pressure, from moments where they had no choice but to push. It's in discomfort that you reinvent yourself. It's in discomfort that you discover discipline. It's in discomfort that you stop pretending and start becoming. But people avoid it as if discomfort is a monster instead of a doorway. Look closely at anyone who transformed their life, left a toxic relationship, built a business, changed their health, rewired their mind. You'll notice something undeniable. They didn't do it because they felt ready. They did it because they felt trapped. Something snapped, a realization that staying the same was more dangerous than changing. That's when comfort loses its grip. The moment you recognize that familiarity is costing you your future, you start to treat discomfort not as a punishment, but as a necessary path. It becomes the signal that you're moving somewhere worth going. Comfort keeps people asleep to their own potential. But the moment you step out of it, you wake up. Suddenly, your senses sharpen. Suddenly, your mind starts working again. You feel alive. Alert, aware, not because life got easier, but because you stopped hiding from it. The discomfort you feared becomes the fuel you needed. The uncertainty you avoided becomes the space where your character forms. The hard choices become the proof that you're not just surviving, you're evolving. And you'll notice that once you break the spell of comfort, everything changes. You stop tolerating half-hearted efforts. You stop making excuses. You stop clinging to people, habits, and environments that keep you stagnant. You begin to demand more from yourself because now you've tasted what's possible when you step beyond the soft walls of your own limitations. That taste rewires you. It ruins you for mediocrity. Comfort will always try to pull you back, whispering that the unknown is too risky, too unstable, too much work. But once you've crossed that invisible threshold where discomfort becomes growth, you'll never fall for that trick again. You'll look at the familiar and recognize it for what it truly is, not a sanctuary, but a cage decorated with pillows. People love to act like time is some endless river, always flowing, always available, always offering another chance downstream. They behave as if life is generous, patient, gentle, as if there will always be another moment to try, to fix, to speak, to start. But time is the quietest thief you'll ever meet. It doesn't break the door. It doesn't make a sound. It just slips 1 second after another out of your pocket while you're too distracted to notice. And by the time you finally look down, the pile is gone. People don't fear death as much as they fear realizing they wasted their life. Yet ironically, they live in a way that guarantees exactly that. Every person hears that inner warning times. You're running out of time. Asterisk. But most ignore it. not because they don't believe it, but because they think they can negotiate. They convince themselves that the important things can wait, that dreams can wait, that self-respect, healing, discipline, ambition can all wait. They treat life like a long hallway with endless doors, each one offering another attempt. But some doors close permanently. Some chances don't return. Some people who love you won't always be there. Some opportunities won't come again once they've passed. And the cruel part, you rarely know which moment is the last one until it's already behind you. People waste years on people who don't value them, places that drain them, habits that bury them, not because they enjoy it, but because it's easy, familiar, convenient. They tell themselves it's not that bad, and that's the poison. Not that bad is the reason people stay in lives they quietly resent. They underestimate how quickly not that bad becomes too late. Time is not a threat. It's a countdown. But most won't admit that. They pretend tomorrow is guaranteed, like it's some item they already purchased. They schedule their greatness for another day, their self-respect for another week, their purpose for another month. They think life will wait patiently for them to get their act together. But life is not patient. Life is a series of shifting moments, each one screaming for your attention, begging you to wake up before the curtain drops. If people truly understood time, they would live differently. They would speak more honestly. They would act more urgently. They would walk away from the wrong things faster and chase the right things harder. They would stop delaying the conversations that matter, the moves that matter, the changes that matter. They would stop pretending pain will fix itself, or dreams will grow by accident, or healing will magically appear without effort. But here's the twist that people never see coming. The moment you take time seriously, you stop fearing it. Once you accept that the clock is ticking, you start using it instead of wasting it. You begin to treat each choice like it matters, each day like it's expensive, each opportunity like it might not return. Suddenly you stop scrolling through your life like it's background noise. You start participating. You start moving with intention. You start saying no to the things that shrink you and yes to the things that stretch you. People always say they want a sign, a wake-up call, a divine warning. They want the sky to open up and shout at them. But time is already shouting. It shouts every morning you wake up tired of your own excuses. It shouts every night you lie in bed knowing you could have done more. It shouts every time you feel that sting of regret, that ache of potential left unexpressed. The world doesn't need to send you another sign. You're surrounded by them. You just keep pretending you're blind. There's a reason people get emotional when they think about their younger self. It's not nostalgia, it's grief. They're mourning all the years they wasted being afraid, distracted, uncertain, passive. They're mourning the version of themselves that believed they had unlimited time. But the truth is, the younger you was right about one thing. You times did times have time. You just didn't use it like it mattered. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not that life is short, but that people spend most of it living like they'll get another one. They wait for the perfect moment, not realizing the perfect moment is simply the moment they decide to move. They wait for permission from people who don't care, approval from crowds that won't remember them, courage from a future self that can only exist if they act now. Time isn't warning you to scare you. It's warning you to wake you, to make you realize that every second you hesitate is a second taken from the life you could have built. Each moment you waste is a promise broken to the person you're capable of becoming. Time isn't the enemy. Time is the announcer, calling out the rounds, reminding you that the fight is happening whether you swing or stand still.